I found a tooth under his pillow this morning. It wasn't his. And it certainly wasn't the tooth fairy's. It was old, yellowed, with a long, jagged root still attached. When I asked him about it, he just smiled that slow, sleepy smile of his and said, "It's just a memento, babe. Don't worry your pretty little head." I'm worried. I'm really worried. Because the spooky boyfriend aesthetic? It's cute on TikTok. It's fun in October. But when you're living with it, when the aesthetic starts staring back at you from the corner of the room at 3 a.m., it stops being cute real fast. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, I need you to tell me if I'm crazy or if I'm in serious danger. Welcome back to the crypt, everyone. If you're new here, we talk about the things that go bump in the night. Usually, those things are outside the house. Today, it's inside. Look, I know my audience. I know you guys. We all love the spooky boy trope, right? The guy who wears too much black, listens to obscure darkwave bands, reads Poe in cemeteries, and has an unhealthy obsession with Tim Burton movies. It's romantic in a dark way. It feels dangerous, but safe. Like petting a black cat that might scratch you, but probably won't. That's what I thought Elias was. We met 6 months ago. I was at the local antique shop, the one downtown that smells like dust and dried lavender. I was looking at this Victorian mourning jewelry. You know, the pieces made with human hair. I felt someone standing just a little too close behind me. I turned around, and there was Elias. He was towering over me, just staring at the glass case. The first thing he ever said to me wasn't hello. He didn't ask for my number. He pointed a long, pale finger at the brooch I was looking at and said, "That hair belonged to a woman named Sarah. She died of tuberculosis in 1892. She hated the smell of lavender." Then he looked at me. His eyes were intense, like they swallowed the light around them. I should have been creeped out, right? A stranger dropping oddly specific facts about a dead woman. But I wasn't. I was intrigued. I thought, oh, Hez committed to the bit. Hez an edgy historian or something. We went for coffee. Well, I had coffee. He just drank hot water with lemon and stared at me. The relationship moved fast. It was intense. He was charming, old-fashioned. He brought me gifts. Not flowers. Never flowers. He said flowers were too temporary, they reek of inevitable decay. Instead, he brought me things like this. A raven skull he found. A vial of dirt from a specific crossroads. Antique photos of people whose eyes were scratched out. At first, I loved it. I felt like the protagonist in a gothic romance novel. I was the edgy girlfriend with the spooky boyfriend. My friends were jealous. They thought he was mysterious. But then, we moved in together 3 weeks ago, and the mystery started to rot. When you live with someone, you see the cracks in the persona. You see them when they are tired, unguarded. With Elias, the unguarded moments are terrifying. It started small. I'd walk into a room, and he'd be murmuring, just under his breath. A rapid-fire stream of words I couldn't catch. If I asked, "Who you talking to, babe?" he'd snap out of it instantly. His whole demeanor would change, like a switch flipping. He'd smile that sleepy smile and say, "Just practicing lines for a play," or "just thinking out loud." But Hez not an actor. And sometimes, when he thinks him asleep, I hear him arguing. Not with himself. Hez pleading. Hez bargaining with the empty air in the corner of our bedroom. And stick around, because later I'm going to tell you what he said last night during one of these arguments that made me lock myself in the bathroom. This is cliché, I know. It sounds like a bad horror movie. But our apartment is freezing. Only when Hez home. The heating bill is astronomical. I have the thermostat set to 75, and I can still see my breath sometimes. When he leaves for work, he works the night shift at a warehouse, or so he says. The apartment warms up within an hour. When his key turns in the lock in the morning, the temperature plummets 10 degrees instantly. I've touched his skin when he comes home. It's not just cold, it's absent of warmth. like touching marble in a mausoleum. Look, if you're listening to this and getting a weird feeling in your stomach because this sounds a little too familiar, hit that like button. Let me know I'm not alone in attracting the weird ones. And if you've ever dated someone who turned out to be genuinely scary, tell me in the comments. I need the validation right now. But the temperature and the whispering, I could handle those. I could rationalize them. What I can't rationalize is the room. When we moved in, Elias claimed the second bedroom as his study. He put a deadbolt on the door the first day. He has one rule. The only rule in our relationship. Never, ever open that door. My work is sensitive. It needs to not be disturbed. I'm not the prying type. Really, I'm not. But curiosity is a curse. Especially when you start smelling things coming from under the door. Sometimes it smells like ozone, like right before a thunderstorm. Sometimes it smells like burning sage and sulfur. And yesterday it smelled like wet copper. Like old pennies. Or blood. Remember I told you about the whispering? Last night, it wasn't whispering. It was screaming. It was 3:33 a.m. I looked at the clock. Elias wasn't in bed. I got up and crept down the hallway. The door to his study was ajar. Just an inch. He must have forgotten to deadbolt it. There was a weird, flickering purple light coming from inside. I didn't go in. I was too scared. But I stood by the crack in the door and I listened. Elias was standing in the middle of the room. He wasn't wearing his usual black clothes. He was naked, covered in symbols drawn in what looked like ash. He was screaming at something in the corner. He was saying, "It's not enough. I gave you the tooth. I gave you the hair. What more do you want from her? From her. From me?" And then, a voice answered him. It wasn't a human voice. It sounded like rocks grinding together inside a deep well. It didn't speak words I could understand, but I felt the words in my teeth. They vibrated in my skull. And then Elias fell to his knees and started sobbing. Uncontrollable, broken sobs. I ran back to bed. I pretended to be asleep when he came back in an hour later, freezing cold, smelling of sulfur and copper. He leaned over me. He stroked my hair. And he whispered, "I won't let them take you. You make such a beautiful anchor. Subscribe and turn on the notification bell." Not just because it helps the channel, but because, if something happens to me, this video might be the only record. I'll try to update you next week. If I'm still here.